What's good, everybody? I hope you are having a great day. My name is Solomon Ordell, and in today's video, we're going to be covering a very interesting Icelandic Palm Gambit game, or Icelandic Gambit game, between Gary Sims and Ronald Luther, played back in the year of 2005. I found this game online, and I thought here that Ronald really showed off some good chess in terms of how to play this gambit at a high level, how to put pressure on the e4 player with this gambit, and how to carry that out for a win. Now, it's against the move e4, in which case we play the Scandi, but against e takes d5, we're not taking back with the queen, but we're instead playing the more aggressive knight to f6. Now, knight f6 itself isn't more aggressive, but what can follow up definitely is. If we see knight to c3, we could play c6 going into the Gustav Gambit. If we see the move d4, we could play bishop g4 going into the Portuguese Gambit. If we go with c4, if we see that move from white, we could see the Scandinavian Gambit or the Icelandic Palm Gambit with pawn to e6. And white doesn't have to take this, but if they don't, we capture back. And, against a lot of different moves, like, for example, if you see knight to c3, we take on d5, we have an even position. But all right, if white does take, which is what they do 77% of games in online chess, we're going to take back with our bishop. And notice here, white has two really big weaknesses, two holes right in the center of the board. d4 is a hole, d3 is a hole. No white pawns can protect those spots. And if we get the chance, we're going to develop very rapidly and really put pressure on those spots. So we see d4 a lot in online chess. That's the most common move that we see. And here we see Ronald Luther go with bishop b4, checking the king. Now, white here plays bishop to d2. This is the only move for them that gives them any type of edge, any type of advantage in this game. Anything else, black has the advantage. Now, if we do see bishop to d2, taking on d2 is okay, right? That works. That's a very good option, actually. Taking on d2 and playing queen e7. Again, white is in the spot where they have to play queen e3. If they do anything else, black is better there. Notice just how much of a slippery slope this is for white. They have to play perfectly again and again and again and again. But in the game here, we have queen to e7, which is another great option. In this position here, I recommend taking the bishop or playing queen e7. I don't recommend one over the other. What I recommend is you playing which one you like the most. But queen e7 here, white should play bishop to e2. White should play that. And again, I have a video covering some theory in terms of how to play against some of these options, but that's not what we see in the game here. And bishop e2 really isn't that common of a move. Okay, queen e2 is what was played here. The moment white did this, all right, black's better. Knight to c6. We're attacking the pawn. Knight f3 is played. We now see castling queenside, and white ends up going, hey, I'm going to play d5. I'm going to try to fork your bishop and your knight. But black here knows what they're doing, and they play rook h e8, just continuing to develop their pieces. Knight c3 was played in the game, but we got to answer the question, right? What happens if white takes on c6 or e6? Well, if you take on c6, we're going to play queen d6 here, putting direct pressure against that minor piece on d2. And notice g3 here, looking towards bishop h3 options, just first off doesn't make sense because we have a bishop here. But on top of that, we could move our bishop and just take the pawn on c4, guys. This queen's not going to make it, and if the pawn wants to take, we're not taking that pawn in general. Okay, in general, what we're going to do is play king to b8. Our king's much safer this way, and we can really take on b7 whenever we want in the future. This is not going to be a hard pawn to win. So if you do see that, calmly move your king over. This pawn is giving you protection from white's own pieces. And again, this queen is just not going to survive. And by the way, if white ends up taking here, you could take the queen, but queen d1 is mate. This game's over. Beautiful stuff. Going back to rook h e8. What if we see d takes e6? Well, in this position here, queen d6 is a mistake. White can now achieve equality. There's a crazy line with knight to c3. We could also see g3 here, and, really you could even argue that white has better than equality right now, because bishop h3 all of a sudden is a big deal. It's something that we got to be concerned about. Taking with the rook here, not a great idea because of bishop h3. Our rook is pinned. So if you do see d takes e6, you got to realize that this is an idea that white can fall on. So what do we do? Queen to c5. Whole idea being that we can swing our queen to f5, stop that bishop h3 idea, and go from here. And if you see something like h4 looking to pull that move off, okay, we just take. And if bishop h3, we can take on e2. We have a knight available now, defended by the queen, to jump into that spot. Our queen is safe, and we continue playing from here. We're up 1 point in material, but it feels like a lot more, and their king is on e2. Going back to rook h8. In the game here, white plays knight c3. They go, hey, I'm not going to take none of that, right? And here we see the move of queen to c5. This is an inaccuracy. A much better move is to actually take on c3 with the bishop. Take on c3 with the bishop, then play queen c5, and there's just unfiltered access, unfiltered activity here for the black side. And if you decide to castle, I mean, let's take on d5. If you decide to take, rook takes e6, you can't save your queen. I mean, if you play knight to e5, we'll take it, right? If you play pawn to g3 here, trying to get the bishop involved somehow, all right, knight f3, game over. But again, in the game there, black did not go for bishop takes c3, which gives us around -2 for black. They instead go with the move of queen to c5. And here white has a move that gives them a fighting chance, and that's really the move of bishop to e3. Now here black missed knight takes d5, and I don't blame black at all for this. This is a crazy line here. Let's just go over what the engine tells us to do. This is my reminder to you guys to not take the engine too seriously. I mention the engine all the time. I think the computers are very helpful when it comes to opening theory. But sometimes in chess, you finish your game, you see the engine move, and you think to yourself, why didn't I see that? Why didn't I see the hanging rook on h1? What the heck? And then sometimes you see a line like this, and you're like, all right, I don't feel bad about that. I wouldn't, at least. Here, apparently, black's supposed to take. And sure, if you take with the c-pawn, right, we have bishop takes c3. The queen supports it. The big question is, what happens if our queen falls off the board? Apparently, we have a single move here that's not losing. Knight takes c3. We're attacking the queen, and our bishop and our rook are both aimed towards the king as well. White here should take the knight. Then we throw in a check. You can't move your king because of our rook, and if you block with the knight, we now play bishop takes c4. Now white here might as well get something for the queen, and if you do that, we capture back here against bishop e3. We're not going to take this rook because then we lose our bishop. So what do? We take on f1. We're still looking at this threat, and white here, all of a sudden, they don't want to lose their rook, so they play rook to c1. All of a sudden, we don't want to just lose our bishop. We don't want to run away with one of our bishops and lose the other, so we get something for one of our bishops. Apparently here we can throw in a check and then run to e2, and black here has a slight edge. But I'll have to say, knight takes d5. I'm not judging black for missing this. That's very computer-esque. Maybe you are, though. Maybe you'd find that. You can let me know down in the comment section below if you would find knight takes d5 very quickly, but I wouldn't. Here we see the move queen a5, which gives us an even game. White plays queen to c2. We have capturing off very quickly, and again, when I say even, I'm not talking about practically. I'm talking about objectively. Objectively, this is an even position. If both sides play perfectly, if both sides look on their phones and they follow Stockfish's advice, it will be a draw. But unless you're cheating, that's not going to happen. And with the move knight takes d5, white ends up castling, the only move for them that is good, and that makes sense. Your bishop is pinned and attacked twice. Your knight is pinned, and it's attacked 3 times. Get your king the heck out of there. And this is a very interesting moment here in the game because, I think a lot of players here would go, okay, I'm going to take, and then I'm going to capture back with my bishop because bishops are better than knights. I think people hype up bishops way too much, and I know I'm about to be, I don't want to be hating on the bishops in chess, right? But bishops are very one-dimensional, will you say. They can only see half the board, and they can be great. They can be better than a knight. But here in this position, it's like, okay, we have our bishop there, but then what now? White has great control of the light squares. Great control. And if we throw in a check, white just continues to stake out pieces on light squares. If we play knight to b4, white can calmly not take the bishop there, right? Because they don't want to lose their queen. But they can just play something like queen to b3, continuing to stake out light squares. We kind of wish this was a knight. So going back, let's take with the bishop first, then take with the knight. That's what happened in the game here. White ended up taking on d8, then playing bishop to c4. But now we have knight to b4. Again, taking on c3. Thanks for the queen. We're winning. But now with queen to b3, these knights, guys, when you have knights and queens, even one knight and queen together can do a bunch of damage to the opponent's structure, to the opponent's king safety. But when you have a queen and 2 knights, goodness. I mean, this is great for us. We see the move of pawn to b5. Amazing move from black, attacking the bishop. You still can't take our knight. We're looking to capture, and you're only up a pawn here. Or let me rephrase that. You're only up 1 point in material here. That's it, right? That's all you got. So, yeah, I mean, I think we as black have 1 less piece, but 2 extra pawns. So we're down 1 point. What does white do here, right? White can't just sit there and give up material or we're going to be losing. So we see the move of bishop takes f7. And here, it might be tempting to take on a2, but here's the problem. When you take on a2, you just lost a grip on e4. And if you play rook d3 now, this is why move order matters. White throws in a check. We move, okay, white throws in a check. We move, okay, white throws in a check. We move, okay, white throws in a check. White continues to do this. And, I mean, look, if something like c6, queen c8, this game is over. The best thing that we can do there is just go for a draw. If you block with the rook, again, queen c8, this game is over. So instead of taking here right away and losing e4, why not play rook d3 first? Keep an eye on this square. Now if white wants to throw in a check, we move our king. Our rook is still very active, but we still have an eye on e4. And by playing rook d3, you're still threatening to take that. We still have 3 attackers on that pawn. White ends up throwing in a check. We see king to b7, knight to d4. Now we take with check. We're going after the queen. We take it right off. Knight to d3 is played. Queen a3 is what we see black go with here. c5 expanding very aggressively. And at the end of this, we could take the bishop, and we are winning this. But then we lose our knight. So what do we do instead? We throw in a check. We then take on c5. White resigns the game here. I hope you guys enjoyed this one. Guys, the Icelandic palm gambit, the Scandinavian gambit, the Portuguese gambit, the Marshall variation, all of these kind of lines are so much fun for the black side. And I recently released an over 11-hour course on how to play the Scandinavian defense. It's meant to be a lifetime repertoire, the modern Scandi. I hope you guys enjoy it. And if you're interested in my 30% off discount code, my launch sale for this course, go down the description below, go down the pinned comment, and you will see the modern Scandi course there. It's over 11 hours. Plug in the discount code CHESS25, and if you do so, you will receive 30% off on your order. Whether you get just that course, maybe you'll throw in the Czech PIRC or the Hippo or the Ponziani or how to play knight c3 against the Scandi. I have 5 courses on the platform, but no matter how many courses you get 30% off. Only good until the end of this month, until the end of the month of April in 2025. I will see y'all in the next video. Have a good one. Peace. To finish out, I wanted to give a big shout out to my Patreon community, specifically Walter, Rob, Steve, Rob, Ray, and Roger, and the rest of my Patreon community. Thank you guys for your support. If you haven't checked out the Patreon already, there are some exclusive benefits that you gain by becoming a member. I look forward to seeing you over there, and I'll see y'all in the next video. Peace.